joining the live stream or for watching the recording. Today is your favorite Q&A session, live Q&A session, so you can ask me anything and I'll answer whatever I will know how to answer. So can be anything from immigration, so different types of visas or residence permits, to getting health insurance or the different options there are, to starting a business in the Czech Republic, finding accommodation, all these kind of things. Can be, of course, personal questions as well. I'm not opposed to those, but those are usually boring. I'm not really that interesting from the standard perspective. And it can also be difficult questions, like, for example, the last live stream I had. Sorry, I'm really tired today, so might be a very weird live stream. But the last one I did, the questions were like very tough from the very beginning. So maybe that's another way to go today. So who will start that? Who will kick it off? Guys, any questions to the comments or to the chat, please. Otherwise, this will be very boring. 5 people watching, guys. Don't tell me you 5 guys. 5 guys. Anyway, don't tell me you don't have any questions. And you do. Kaya Chibuente. I am definitely mispronouncing all your names, guys. Sorry. I'll do my best, but you know, you're from all the different parts of the world, so it's difficult. Hello, Jan. Can I apply for a long-term visa if my studies are 1.5 years, or I have to straight away apply for long-term residency? Well, it depends if it's what kind of studies it is, because 1.5 years is kind of weird. So it does not sound like an accredited program. If it's not an accredited program, then you can only apply for a visa, because you will be applying for the other purpose of stay, and you can only start with a visa. If it is an accredited program, you can apply for the proper student visa or residence permit. You can choose, because the student residence permits are always anyway given for 1 year. So even if you study bachelor's for 3 years, you will not get a student residence permit for 3 years or even 2 years. You will always do 1 year at a time. So what kind of smiley is it? Anyway, so you will not get the residence permit. What is that? What is that? Sorry. I am easily distractible. Anyway, so you will not be getting residence permit for 3 years or even 1 year. So 2 years, you will always get 1 year. So you can choose if you want the visa or residence permit. It depends. There are different rules. For example, getting the visa is a bit easier and faster. On the other hand, the residence permit is harder to get denied, and it's a bit more complicated process after you get approved, because the visa is just picked up from the embassy and you're done. The residence permit must be finished in the Czech Republic. You need to do your fingerprints, all that. So depends if you're the other student or if you're a proper student, and then what's your plan. Sometimes makes more sense to apply for a visa, sometimes makes more sense to apply for a residence permit. Bertie for life, zdravím, zdravím as well. Shining Star, what? Who's Shining Star and what is what? Yeah, I'm pretty tired, and when I'm tired, I act like a chicken sometimes. Education Academy UDR, I have applied for my long-term visa employee card in Dresden. So that's already where I will comment, because I said it in one of the previous videos, like from last week or something, when I did the topical one about questions on Facebook. And this is exactly one of the parts I was talking about there. There is no long-term visa employee card. You either apply for a long-term visa or you apply for an employee card. That's not the same thing, and that's like completely 2 different things. So I'm saying it just because this is very important, because if you tell me I've applied for a long-term visa, then the rules and my answers to any of your questions might be completely different than if you say I applied for an employee card. But then, of course, you need to be sure that you applied for what you say you applied for. But let me finish it. This was just like my rant about this, because that's very important. If you want to get some like specific answer from me, whether here or if you come for a consultation, you have to be very specific. If you come for a consultation, I ask you all the questions, so it's easier to get there, or you can show me the residence card or the application form, whatever. But here it's a bit more complicated. Anyway, so let's see. In Dresden, it's been 26 days already. I'm still showing in process. This waiting period is so frustrating. Man, what is frustrating about 26 days? The ministry officially has 60 to 90 days to make the decision. Sometimes they can take way longer because they don't care about the law anyway. So 26 days is nothing yet. Did they by any chance can approve quick? Potentially they can, you never know. We've worked with like 15,000 people since we started 13 years ago. And we've had people who were approved in 10 days. And we've had people who were approved after like a year for different types of visas. I'm not saying now employee card or whatever type, but there are different situations. So you never really know. They can approve it fast if you have a good nationality. Meaning if you are an American, Canadian, Australian, these like safe nationalities. If you have a good employer, for example, if you applied really for an employee card and not a long-term visa, and if you submitted all the documents are correct. Dresden is good because embassies don't make decisions. They always take your documents and ship them physically to the Czech Republic. So from Dresden, it can take a couple days. If you apply it in India or in the US, it can take a couple of weeks before someone even starts checking your application. So yes, potentially you have chances of getting approved sooner, but I would definitely not count with that too much. Navindu Archana, ahoj Jan, ahoj Navindu, jak se máš? Děkuju za připojení. Safe Haven, hi Jan, I have an awkward situation. I like that already. I filed for employee card in Abu Dhabi on 26th August. UC Education Academy, 26th of August, which is what? It's like 8 months or something, 10 months, I don't know, whatever. Anyway, they told me one document was missing and gave me 60 days to bring. 2 weeks later, I brought. They received. Okay, so that's not that awkward. Is there a question to that? Or you just stated how efficient the Czech government is? Now, but one thing is that if you submit application and something is missing, so the time when they're waiting for you to submit it does not count to the official timeline. So if they have 60 days to make the decision, but they are waiting 60 days for a document from you, that's basically 0 days. Okay, so yeah, but then if you gave them everything, they send it to the Czech Republic, it's a bit too long. Let's say if they send it in September, yeah, that's like 7 months, 8 months, something like that. So that's a bit too long, in my opinion, even for the Ministry of the Interior. Neil, I'm unemployed since 1 year and now I have employment contract from Czech employer. Is it okay to mention unemployed in a long-term visa form? Again, if you are applying for based on an employment, so most likely for an employee card or a blue card, that's not a long-term visa form. That's a long-term residence permit form. The employer is not part of economic migration. Well, then it depends on where you're trying to apply. Because if you're from India, for example, and your employer is not part of the program, then you will never get an appointment, you will never apply, or at least until they change the quotas, which is not, I don't expect that anytime soon. But as for unemployed, it depends on the situation. Well, one thing, if you mentioned unemployed or something else, that's probably not the thing that will decide if you get or don't get the residence permit. But of course, if there are more, if you say you're unemployed and then you mention that you work in a completely different field than what you're doing here, and then there might be some problems with some documents you submit, that can all add up and it can potentially influence the process. But just the one word somewhere, not really, but kind of up to you. You can put there also the last employment you had if you want, or unemployed. Like, of course, the application form should be filled based on your real situation. But so it depends on what exactly they're asking about. If it's your last job or if your current status, and what you want to write there. Vishal Vichu, I'm in Dubai now. How can I come to Czech? Depends. You need to find some solid reason to come to the Czech Republic and apply for a visa, because Czech Republic generally is not an easy country to get a visa. I repeat it every time I do a live stream, every time I do a consultation with our clients. Czech Republic is not a simple country to get a visa for. Used to be ish, but not anymore. So you always, if you want to move to the Czech Republic, you always need to have some solid reason to be here, and you need to have all the supportive documents. So Vishal Vichu sounds Indian. So if you're an Indian living in Dubai, I would definitely not go for a business visa. Chances minimal. Employment, potentially, because I don't think there is a quota in Abu Dhabi, so you could potentially submit the application there. Definitely not in India though. So it depends on how long you've been living in UAE. And yeah, studies, potentially, if it makes sense in your case, if you've just finished studies or if it's something like related to what you do. But other than that, maybe some other country might be easier. Education Academy, but is it really fair for Czech consulate to delay the application for 8 months? Like, really? It's not about being fair. So they can do that. One thing is that the embassy does not make the decision. So what happens is that the embassy only collects the documents and then send them to the Ministry of the Interior. They can keep the application there if you're submitting the application which is incomplete. But once you give all the documents to the embassy sends it to the Ministry of the Interior, and then it's up to the Ministry of the Interior. Sometimes they lose your documents. So maybe it's been 9 months because they don't have the documents, so they're not working on anything. Sometimes they just, or often maybe, they just misplace the document somewhere. They just put them into some shelf, and then the person who was dealing with your case is fired or leaves, or goes for a long sick leave or something like that, and no one's really doing anything with your application. Sometimes they need to verify a couple things. Sometimes it sounds like they are just waiting for some of your documents to expire to then deny your application based on expired documents. That happens as well. So yeah, it can happen. Ideally, you can take some steps like after a shorter period of time than 8 months, but that happens. Yeah. I've done a video about I've done a video about like what steps you can take if the application has been taken too long. So if you go somewhere to my channel, you'll find it there. Scott Ellis, is it the Scott Ellis that used to work with us years ago? I hope so. Scott Elliott, hello. I have been living here in Europe for about 25 years in various countries such as Poland, Italy, Germany, Austria, and lastly in Czech Republic. I will say Czech Republic because I don't like Czechia, but for the last 17 years as a permanent resident. I'm considering to apply for citizenship, but I have never had any proper Czech language classes. I speak Czech on daily basis at work, but it's very messy and I'm not sure how to move forward. Scott Ellis, I feel like I'm probably too old to suss the language to pass the tests. Maybe I could have meeting with you to get a one-on-one opinion. Of course, I'll be happy to meet you. I'm just not sure if I'm the correct person to test your Czech. But definitely, but you will need to pass the exam. Plus, you will need to pass the test of the Czech history and stuff. I don't know how to call it in one word, but all that. Potentially, if you're above some age limit, you don't have to pass these. There are some other exceptions as well, so you might necessarily not need to do that. But if you speak on daily basis, you should be completely fine. It's B1, and if you've been living here for 17 years and you practice it on daily basis, you should be completely fine. There are other more important things for the citizenship application. Safe Haven, they received it, stamped it, and I paid for translation. The lady told me to go. 6 months later, no result. I got back to the embassy and they told me my application has been stopped. Okay, well, okay, so that's an unexpected twist there. They probably stopped it and never sent it to the ministry because they thought you never gave them some of the documents. Oh, that's interesting. Navin Duarkhana. I'm from Sri Lanka. I came to Czech language course. Is it an accredited program? It is. I have just finished the... Okay. I'm from Sri Lanka and I came to Czech Republic for an accredited Czech language course, which I have now finished. I haven't applied for a university yet. I plan to apply for an employee card. Do I have free access to the labor market or do I need to apply for a job listed at the Úřad práce? Well, I would need to know kind of a bit more, but most likely you don't have free access to the labor market because that's generally just for standard education, like if you studied high school, but in most cases, potentially high school, but in most cases, if you studied Czech bachelor's or master's. So very likely you don't have free access to the labor market based on a Czech language classes. Even though they might be accredited. Nur Hayati R. Hayan, is it possible to apply for a 7-year-old child only unaccompanied by an adult for a family reunification residence permit? I'm in Prague with an employee card and daughter is in Malaysia. Potentially you can apply for a family reunification, but there are a couple things to mention. First, you will definitely need to get consent of the other parent. So it also depends. If the daughter has both of you in her birth certificate as parents, then the other parent will need to give you a consent with taking the child to the Czech Republic. Then also someone needs to submit the application. So you can potentially give someone a power of attorney to go to the embassy and submit the application on behalf of your daughter because she obviously cannot represent herself at 7 years of age. But then also when she flies here, I don't think she will be able to fly on her own. So she will need to have someone accompanying her. But to get her here to just live with you and not the other parent, that's possible, but you need to get a consent from the other parent. Safe Haven, that's continuation of the story. For failure to provide a missing document which I already provided, stamped by the embassy, pay the fee, and have a receipt for it. Yeah. I probably don't have anything to say about that. That just sucks, man. And I can see that happening. For this, it's always best to get a confirmation that you gave them the documents, but the missing documents. Question is if you gave them really everything and in the form they wanted that. But I'm not saying you didn't. It's just a question if you did, and then it's the question what happened afterwards. But yeah, this sucks. Yeah, to wait 8 months just to find out that they never really started working on the application because they maybe misplaced the documents you gave them. Yeah, cool story. Cool story. Rijamal, hi sir, how many months will it take to get a tourist visa if I apply? Honestly, I have no idea because we don't really do short-term visas. We only move people to the Czech Republic for good. So we don't do short-term visas, but generally they are processed pretty swiftly. I think like 2 weeks tops is the limit for short-term visas, but might depend on the embassy and your country of origin, the documents you submit, all that. But that's usually pretty swift from my knowledge, but really we don't have too much experience with that. Vitalis Idoko, I have visa to study in Malta. Also, I have admission to study in Czech Republic. Can I apply for a residence permit in Czech? Kind of depends exactly on the situation and what you do and what you plan on doing. Because technically, if you have a student residence permit in some other EU country, you can potentially move to the Czech Republic and be here for up to 1 year without a residence permit. Or you can potentially switch your other EU residence permit to a Czech one in the Czech Republic. But there are some rules to that, so I would need to know more. Another thing is that, well, like how you want to go about it. If you will be going back to Malta after you study here, if not, or how long you have been living in Malta and where are you from. So it's a bit complex question, but potentially it is possible. But it depends on the exact situation. Chaser Dream, hi. Hey, thank you for joining. Safe Haven, so basically they say they have stopped my application because I didn't provide a missing document, but I have actually given it. They gave me original copy back, so I thought they kept copy. Yeah. I have nothing to say about this, unfortunately. I can completely see that happening. Czechia and Malu, when you are applying for a spouse visa, what's the purpose of stay in the application form? First of all, the application form should be filled in Czech completely. It's usually both Czech and English, like the questions, but what you fill in should be in Czech. If you fill it in English, in most cases it will work out, but officially, even if you read the instructions on the actual application form, there is usually written like fill in Czech in capital letters or on computer. I believe they still mention like the typewriter there, but because those are really old forms. But yeah, generally either on computer or like in hand, but in capital letters and in Czech language. So you should write it there in Czech. And then it depends. There are two types of family reunification. One is rodinný, like family, which doesn't allow your spouse to work here. The other one is soužití rodiny, family reunification, and that allows your spouse to work here. So it depends if you want the spouse to work or not, and it depends if you meet the requirements for the family reunification, because there are some waiting times after which you can apply. I'm 53, married with dual citizen children, Canadian, Czech. That could help, because that shows that you are more integrated into the society. Like 2 kids are pretty good integration. Yeah, but yeah, of course, get in touch. We can meet and discuss what you need to do for the citizenship application. I would definitely not like postpone it too much if you qualify, and if the only thing you're missing is the Czech language exam and the history and all that. I would definitely not wait, because it's not gonna get easier really, and it's might get easier at 65 because you will not need to pass the exam. But then at 65, if you've been here for 30 years, I don't know if it still makes sense then to apply for citizenship. Probably yes, for some people, but I would do it now. 53 is not too old to like pass an exam, I think. Vitalis Sidoko, can I travel with my family with student visas to the Czech Republic? Yes, you can. There are plenty of questions, guys, so I need to be faster. Because it's 24 minutes and I'm getting really tired. So I'll be faster. So, can I travel with my family with student visa to the Czech Republic? Yes. Bashir Abshish Ahbish. Bashir Abish. Sorry for mispronouncing. Can you do a video about how much international students who work as a freelancer, World Courier, have to pay in taxes? For example, let's say I earn 220,000 annual. I did make a video about that. It might be a bit old, but I've done video about taxes and freelancers, and I've done video about Volt drivers as well. So go somewhere to my channel and check it there. Safe haven. So I emailed the documents to them with the embassy stamp proving that they had received the documents with the payment receipt, 600 krona. Now they say to come back in July. The consular officer is not her. They say come back in July when the consular officer will be around. My question is, can I still approve that my employee card after almost a year if I gave the documents in time? Most likely not. You will need to resubmit all the documents again, most likely, unless the consul pulls all the strings she can or he can, I don't know. Because generally the embassy, as I understand it, they've never even sent the documents to the Ministry of the Interior. So the Ministry of the Interior never even knew that you applied for an employee card. So they have nothing to approve. So you will need to send the or the embassy will need to send the documents to them, but the documents cannot be older than 6 months. So if it's been 1 year, you will most likely need to get all the documents again. Nur Hayati, got it. Thanks, Jan, for your response. My pleasure. Navindu, my long-term visa will expire in 3 months. Do I need a job contract to apply for an employee card? Can I submit the contract later after handing in the other documents? Let's see what visa you have now, Navindu. Navindu, I need to scroll back to find your previous question. Navindu, do I have free access? Okay, that was the 1.5 years of Czech language course. And now is the question what? Do I need your job contract to apply for an employee card? Yes. You need to have the vacancy number, which needs to be filled in the form, and you need to have the job. But of course, you can submit the application without that, but then you're missing the vacancy number already, which is not good. And then the ministry only gives you a specific amount of time, depending on them, kind of. It must be reasonable, but that's kind of open to interpretation. So if they give you 30 days to deliver the employment contract and you don't have the employer yet, that might be pretty complicated. Might be best to just go to a university, because then you have free access to the labor market as a student and you can work freely anyway. You don't need to switch to anything. Vrinda Sharma, I have submitted my husband's spouse visa application, but till now the status is not found. When will the status come in process? I already spent 22 days with it. Can you please tell me? Yeah, I mentioned that in the beginning that if you applied in India or in the US, like the very distant embassies, it usually takes 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks before the documents are even delivered to the Czech Republic and someone starts considering them. So 22 days, yeah, the documents probably are somewhere on the way to the Czech Republic and no one's been checking them yet. So give them more time, give them 2 more weeks maybe, and if in 2 more weeks you don't see in process, then maybe potentially could take some steps, but I don't really know what steps you could take if the documents are somewhere in the metaverse. So yeah, that can happen. It's even a couple weeks before someone even starts checking the application. Nasim Ahmed, hi, I applied before I was going to do my master's. Can I apply for study visa? Can I also apply for my family too at the same time? And what is the exact amount needed for a 4-people family? You can apply at the same time. Your application just needs to be strong enough. Because if you come here as a student alone, then you just need to have enough money for you. You need to have a strong reason to be here just for you. But if you come in with a family, then you need to have 4 times more money, basically. You need to have very solid reason to be here. Otherwise, it will look like you're just faking the application to move your family to Europe. And that might complicate the application. So yes, you can submit your applications all together, but your story must be super strong. As for the money, it depends, especially on the age of the kids, but generally 124 an adult, so 120, 120, that's 240, and half for that for kids. So 240, 360, 360,000 crowns roughly for the 4 of you. If there are 2 adults and 2 kids below 15. Yazan Amri, does the rodičovský příspěvek can be account as income with additional to my salary because I need more 3K for životní minimum? Honestly, I would need to double check that because there are some things that can be counted, there are some things that cannot be counted, and I don't remember them from top of my head because we don't deal with rodičovský příspěvek too often. I would need to double check that. I don't know from top of my head. Clifford Niarko wrote something and then decided not to. Scott Ellis, thank you for the response. I will reach out. Thank you. We'll be looking forward. So let's see, there are more. So the last question I'll answer will be Amigo or Safe Haven. Okay, that's a continuation of the story, of the beautiful story about the Czech embassy. Anyway, so that will be the last thing, Amigo and then Safe Haven, and then I go to sleep. So it's 10 o'clock, that's my nap time already. So, Navindu, my long-term visa will expire in 3 months. Do I need a job contract? I already answered that. Amigo, I have a contract from Lursen Employments. It's guaranteed now I will get my visa. Contract as a warehouse worker. It's now remaining 1 week to be 2 months waiting for visa. I'm a guarantee of visa for Czech Republic. There is never anything guaranteed in Czech immigration because it depends first on you. If, let's say, you are an internationally wanted terrorist, you will never get a visa. It depends on your employer. So if your employer, for example, does not pay social security, healthcare for their employees, you will hardly get the visa unless they sort it out with the ministry and all the authorities. So there are still many things that can influence this, and there is definitely never 100% choice or chance that you will get the visa. Terry, do you prepare students for a visa interview? Only those who do the whole process with us. We don't really do it as a separate service, but if you go through us for the whole process, then we do prepare for the interview. I've also done a video about that, so if you go to my channel, you can find some inspiration there as well. Yazan Amri, or PhD scholarship, can it be counted as income with additional to my salary because I want to apply for permanent residency for my son and I already have it but just achieved the životní minimum? The scholarship is more likely to be accepted. So I'm kind of positive about that one. Still would need to double check it, but if I should choose between rodičovský příspěvek and scholarship, then I would go for the scholarship. But again, I would need to double check that. So Amigo contract as a warehouse worker, is it now remaining? I answered that already. And Safe Haven, that's the last. Yeah, so Neil as well, because that's the last. It's about health insurance and I like that. So Safe Haven, so if I understand you correctly, my employee will need to give me another contract from, even though my present contract documents run till 2026. Very likely, yes. Most likely you will need to get everything redone because you cannot submit documents that are older than 180 days, other than, of course, your passport or marriage certificate, which never expire basically, or passport after 10 years. But all the other documents like employment contract, accommodation, criminal checks, all that has a limited validity. So if it's been more than half a year, you will most likely need to get it done again. Unless the embassy can say, yeah, we made a mistake, sorry, we'll now get all the documents for you or something, but I don't really believe that. So Neil will be the last answer. After visa approval, is it necessary to buy insurance coverage of 400,000 or even basic insurance coverage of 60,000 will work? It depends on the purpose, but for most, or in most cases, you need 400,000, which you could potentially, and the embassies sometimes write it in their emails, which was stupid until very recently. Then they write that you can also get the basic for the first 3 months, but it needs to meet the 400,000 requirement, which basically none of the insurances on the market used to meet. Now there is one company which offers the basic with 400,000 coverage. So we can actually do that. So get in touch and I'll be happy to send you the quote, but you can only use the basic for 3 months. So if you need the insurance just for an employee card for the 60 days entry visa, and then you will get the employee card in the Czech Republic, the fingerprint and all that, that could work. If you got your student visa, for example, for a year, then you cannot use the basic. You could use basic for the first 3 months and then buy the comprehensive, but I don't think it makes sense if you need a year long insurance and just get the comprehensive, because also the coverage is better, you know. If something happens, you could actually use it. The emergency is just for cases of emergency. And guys, it's been 35 minutes. I appreciate that you're here, that you're asking questions, that I usually am in my bed and ready to sleep at this time. So I need to finish the live stream. But I'll be happy to see you again. Thank you for being here. It was great questions, or it's been great questions, and I enjoyed that. Hopefully this was useful as well to you. And I'll see you again Thursday, Monday, until the end of the world. Good night, guys. Bye-bye.